So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our discussion on mobilizing capital for the Caribbean and Central America in the USA House. Thanks for the invitation. We have to know that these regions are strategically positioned at the crossroads of global trade, logistics, energy, tourism, and manufacturing. As supply chain shift and geopolitical priorities evolve, the Caribbean and Central America have a unique opportunity to attract significant private investment and become key economic partners of the new United States with the government of President Trump. Today we will explore not only where the opportunities are, but also how our governments, financial institutions, and the private sector can work together to unlock capital and accelerate growth. I'm delighted to be joined by two leaders who bring deep expertise in investment, trade, and economic development across the Americas. David Mullings is the founder and chairman of Blue Maho Capital investment firm, focused on unlocking opportunities across the Caribbean, a strong advocate for economic development and diaspora investment. David has dedicated his career to connecting international capital with high growth opportunities throughout the region. His work has helped elevate the conversation around the Caribbean as a serious destination for institutional and private investment. Dovi Eisenman serves as the president of the Chamber of Commerce of the Colon Free Trade Zone, one of the largest free trade zones in the world and a critical hub for commerce throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. He has extensive experience in international trade, logistics, and economic development, and has been a leading voice in the strengthening Panama's role as a gateway for investment and global supply chains. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here today, and let's start with the first question. Why invest in the Caribbean and Central American now? We start with our friend from Panama because he's local.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Well, basically, everything is happening here right now. As you have seen, the war, the problem with everything that is going on around Asia, and the geopolitical situation is putting Panama and the region in a spot. Why? Because the customers are willing to have their inventory on time. But not only that, they want to have the price, the right price. And if you go and you sell something now, and tomorrow the freight change and go up, you're going to have a problem because the price that you gave today is not the same price it's going to be tomorrow. So what they're doing is that all the providers are trying to have their inventory here, which is called nearshoring. And then when you do a sale, you have your product here close to your customer. Panama, as an example, is a hub. We have Atlantic and Pacific, 1 hour drive from one side to the other. We have 3 major ports in the Atlantic side, and we have 2 major ports in the Pacific side. And then basically, we have the Panama Canal, which give us 180 steam carriers that goes through Panama, and there's an option to go everywhere from here. Also, we have Copa Airlines, who is able to travel to different countries around the region, and we have one and last important thing that is the international Tucumán airport. And why I say that, because if you go all around the region, all the airports are very high of the sea level. In Panama, we are on the sea level. So what is that? Well, when an airplane arrives here and have to go from here to any country, it could go at the maximum capacity of cargo and passenger, because being on the sea level gives us a better performance than being on a higher level. So I will say that that's some of the key points that I could bring today to say why we are so good on doing business here. And also we have all the Caribbean, we have all the Central America that we work together very well for many, many years, and we know how to do business together.
Let's go with David Mullings. Many investors still see the Caribbean like primarily as a tourism destination. What investment opportunities do you believe remain largely overlooked by international capital markets? And you are from a beautiful island like Jamaica.
Yes, no, thank you for that, Javier. What I would say, I'm going to tell you the obvious ones, the ones that are obvious to me, and then I'll try and surprise you with some ones that are really overlooked. The first thing I try to explain to people is to think about the 4 Asian tigers back in the 1980s, or India 25 years ago. Where would you have invested there if you had the opportunity to go back in time 25 years ago? So if you look at a country that has highly educated people, a growing middle class, low household debt, the government is privatizing things. You're seeing increased urbanization. They're spending money on infrastructure, so industrialization. They're very connected for shipping and logistics. And a growing middle class, you're going to invest in the same things: financial services, information, communication, technology. You're going to invest in the shipping and logistics side of the business. We're going to talk about food and agribusiness, moving up the value chain. So it's all the same. And this is economics 101, if you remember that in college. It's the same thing. We're just late. The Caribbean is late to the game. Some of the advantages we have, though, right? We have that resort distort. The Caribbean is known for sun, sea, and sand, some other S's. We need people to think beyond that. In my case, we heard somebody earlier on a panel mention James Bond and AI. Every single James Bond book was written in Jamaica by Ian Fleming. The first James Bond movie was shot in Jamaica, Dr. No, and we've had 4. We've had multiple films shot in the Caribbean. So there is obviously an opportunity in the creative arts space. If I say Bob Marley, you can name at least 4 songs. You probably can sing those songs. If I say Usain Bolt, you can do the pose. Where are the investments in sports, tourism? Where are the investments in our music? I was in my taxi yesterday, and he's playing TOK and Sean Paul, 2 people I've been on tour with. 2 of the guys from TOK are investors in my company. As a Jamaican, us not investing in reggae and dancehall, when we see what reggaeton has done, that's especially overlooked. So I think we have some interesting opportunities.
Let's go to the hardest part, like mobilizing capital. No? There is no shortage of investment opportunities in the region. The challenge is often access to capital. What needs to happen to attract more U.S. international investment in countries like Panama?
Good question. I would say, like, before Trump era, Panama and all the region was very abandoned by the U.S. The focus of the U.S. was not in this region. So there were other countries that were developing here. Now, with the Trump era, he started investing and paying attention a lot. Well, he mentioned Panama in his inaugural speech. So I would say Panama has become a very interested place for the U.S. We have been traveling back and forth to events like this and there as well in Washington and in different areas, trying to bring investment to Panama. And I believe one of the greatest things we have in Panama is that we have the US dollar. So that gives a lot of confidence to the people because you're managing the same money. You're not the same currency. Then you have a country that is people that are looking for gift service to work, more in the logistics services and the tourism. And there's a lot of things to develop. I think that once we are able to strong this relationship as we have been doing, we're going to have more people coming to Panama. I would like to add that there's a lot of companies from the US that are starting to look a way to bring their inventory that they produce in China, the manufacturing, to this area, because there is a problem with the free trade, the aranceles. I would say the import duties and taxes that you have to pay when you bring something from China. You have to pay, I don't know, 50%, 60% of the item. When you bring it from Panama and you produce it in Panama, you're going to pay only 10% of the import duty or tax. So that's an advantage to start doing things over here. Also, you have all the buildings, the housing. Now the Free Zone is developing 300 hectares of new warehouses to do logistics for companies that are trying to establish in the region and from here start doing nearshoring to the region. So I believe it's going to start growing the investment because the U.S. is looking to put more attention in this area.
How can local governments create the stability that investors seek?
Well, again, this is an Econ 101 class, right? We talk about a pest analysis, for example. So when an investor hears about a good opportunity, so if I come to you and say that there are 70,000 people in Jamaica qualified for a National Housing Trust mortgage, the country needs 150,000 houses, and we're only building 4,000 per year, and the government has a guaranteed purchase program, you should have a light bulb going off that maybe I should invest in building affordable housing, and then we can sell it to them. But the smart investor is going to ask the next question: do I have certainty of getting back my money? This matters, the environment you invest in. So they're going to obviously look at, is this place politically stable? So that's the first thing. So that's something that not just local government, national government has to focus on. The second question is, Are they corrupt, or can I actually do business without paying somebody off? That's number two. Number three, is the legal system actually functional? Is there a real court system? And then is there a banking system? What are the qualifications of the people, or will I need to import labor? Local government and national governments have to check all those boxes if they want to attract serious investors, whether they're investors of heritage from the region. We know our countries even better. What I would say is that there are three things that should get you excited about investing in an industry, a country, or a region. Number one, inefficiencies must be present. I cannot make a profit in a perfectly efficient market. And we know about Latin America and the Caribbean when we talk about inefficiency. Right? Number two, perception must be different from reality. The perception should be small country, small opportunity. The reality is that there's billions of dollars of opportunity. That's number two. And then number three, there should be a lack of equity capital flowing into that industry, that country, or that region. We have seen a lot of debt capital coming in, whether it's debt from China, debt from the US, Canada, European Union, UK. We have gotten a lot of debt capital. Thankfully, a lot of the governments, especially in the Caribbean, have focused on being fiscally responsible now. This is not the 80s where we keep running to the IMF. You know, we've seen countries like Jamaica, like Barbados, like Bahamas, paying down debt and reducing their debt to GDP ratio. So countries, in my opinion, are growing up. These are young countries. We got independence in the 60s and 70s. They're now finally young adults, and that's what they need to learn from the countries that have already walked the path ahead of us, and I think we can learn that from Central America in particular.
You have a great government here with Mr. Molino promoting the capital, no? Protecting the businessman. No? Have you seen, like, what do you think about the right-wing wave, no? That we are looking in Argentina, Javier Milei, that we're looking in Colombia with Abelardo de la Espriella, El Salvador with Bukele, the Chile of the Americas. Do you think it's important to attract more money in the region, like countries escaping from the communism, like to avoid like what happened in Venezuela, no, a long time ago, what happened in Cuba?
Yes, I will say that any country that is pro-investment and pro-business will grow, because the only way that a country could grow is when you give work to the people, you give something to do to the people that is not providing free money like subsidies or things like that. Because on the other way, when you start, all these lefty countries, they become presidents promising many good things, and we're going to give you everything for free, and this and this and that. And that's, at the end, it's not a stable country. I mean, when you try to do that, doesn't work. So I believe that more we're going to have countries with presidents that are pro-business and democratic and no corruption, and have all the legal side separate from the presidential side, and let work all the depending of which the way of government you have. But in our country, we have the president, we have the legislation, and we have the lawyers. Not the lawyers, the judges. So you have to let them work, and they have to be independent. You cannot go into their job and try to tell them what to do. Once you let that work, and there is a check and balance, and there is a good business environment, then you're going to be able to have a growing country with people looking to invest. And the most important, I think, when you're going to invest in something, you want to make sure that your investment is secure, that you're going to have a stable country, as David say, and nobody's going to steal your business, nobody's going to steal your idea, trying to say, oh, no, you cannot do that anymore, we're going to take that from you. When you have a country stable and protective, you're going to be able to succeed.
Let's talk about the strategic role of the United States. This country has improved his engagement in the Western Hemisphere. How can US investors and institutions become more active in the Caribbean and Central America? Because you have in the US government like institutions like Exim Bank, DFC. So what do you think about this institution? It's hard to get contacts with them, to get money from them, because they have a lot of money.
I love that question. And it sounded like Dovi was describing Singapore earlier when he talked about stable government, business friendly. But what I would say is there are two ways that the US in particular can focus on supporting its front yard. I call us, Central America, and the Caribbean are the front yard of the United States. You have to go through us to get in that door. So you're passing through here. The U.S. needs to change its mindset and recognize that we are the front yard. We have been a source of workers, especially knowledge workers in many cases. And that's not a bad thing. Number one, they need to not focus on always debt capital. They need to support small and medium businesses because that's who creates 70 to 80% of the jobs. If good jobs exist and people have good quality of life, they're not going to leave. We have a brain drain. Jamaica, for example, more than 70% who graduate with a tertiary degree leave within 5 years. We have to turn that brain drain into a brain gain. So number one is put equity capital to work at the smaller level, small and medium-sized businesses. And the second one, thankfully in the US, they did this under the Jobs Act passed under the Obama administration in 2012. They made it very simple to raise money from non-accredited investors, retail investors. I have taken that specific thing to target the Caribbean diaspora because the majority of them, when we move, yes, we're making a lot of money when you convert it to local currency, but we still have our US cost of living, Miami, for example. So they're usually not accredited. If you can pool that capital as well, so not just the money from DFC and IDB, let's also go to people who already want to invest home. They're already familiar with the culture. They know how things really work down there. They're more patient, but it's not a diaspora bond. We're not trying to do another bond. We need equity capital. We can use the Jobs Act to raise that money, and then you can list that company on US markets, which gives you true governance. People want global governance standards, not what sometimes we are used to in emerging markets. And then it gives you additional liquidity. And that can attract additional institutional investors like your 401k. And then I can get a match as a Jamaican American to then buy into a local Jamaican company because before something was listed, I couldn't do that. So they can help us unlock that as well.
Can Exim and DFC become effective alternatives to financing offered by strategic competitors such as China in the region? The U.S. ambassador in Panama, Kevin Cabrera, is doing a great job, no, against China. What do you think about DFC, Exim Bank, like to offer more money, against the Chinese capitals?
Sent to Panama to provide investment money to Panama. I think as a country, we get a lot of money from the past government and we get a lot of debt. So we need to work together with the US to get very good rates on the interest to be able to ask for money, but also we have to make sure that we're going to be able to repay that money and not start asking for money and money and money and not have, the government doesn't work as a company or the country doesn't work as a company. They always own money to the rest of the world, even the US own money. But I think the most important thing is that we are able to have a stable economy where you have a good percentage between the money that you own and the money that you are making. But also, you have to be very, very careful not to struggle the local economy, trying to not expend money and not to invest in construction and investment of the country. Because once you start not producing anything, then you're going to have also a shortage in the economy. So it's a big balance that you have to have. And then also remember that China before used to give a lot of money to countries like us and incentives to do a bridge, to do a road, to do a train, to do whatever. But I believe that the difference between what we used to be receiving from China and now what we're receiving from the US is that in that case, as we see in the Peru, there's a problem now with the government of Peru and China because the port that was constructed over there, they're not letting the government to enter to the port because they say, no, it's a China investment, then it's a private port, and you cannot get into it. I think it's very important when you get support from another country or from a bank or any agreement that you do, that you're always going to have control of your country, of your investment, and you're going to sell your country as well. So that's an important balance to do.
Let's talk about nearshoring. Can Central America position itself as a major nearshoring destination, comparing to Asia?
I think Dovi definitely would agree that Central America can position itself that way. The Caribbean plays its own role. Right? You come out of the Panama Canal, you run aground in Jamaica. There's a reason the pirates are based in Port Royal. It makes sense. It's the seventh largest naturally protected harbor in the entire world. So from a nearshoring standpoint, if we think shipping and logistics, break in bulk, you come through Panama Canal, you can do some things between Panama and Jamaica. I can see that being very clear. But there's also other opportunities when we think about BPO, business process outsourcing, right? We used to call them call centers. But they've started to move up the value chain. You know, Panama is primarily Spanish, Central America is primarily Spanish, the Caribbean is mostly English. So you would have that call center is based, one in Jamaica for when somebody calls in English from the US or Canada, and then the Spanish-speaking call center is based here, but it's the same company that owns the two. I think there's clear opportunity there, but we have to move up the value chain, especially in the age of AI. The AI can take care of some basic stuff. I am going to type agent please, as was said earlier, to talk to the real person. But there's some things you don't want AI to look at. So when I go and scan an MRI, I do an MRI scan, I do a CAT scan, that's digital. If you go to a hospital in Miami, it's probably going to be somebody from Central America or South America that you're going to see. You're probably going to see a Jamaican nurse if you go into in New York. So they're already familiar with our people and our skills. Why not send that X-ray, that CAT scan, that MRI, digital image to here? We can go and read it, and we probably do it for 1/3 the cost of what it would be there, which actually reduces the cost of their healthcare and benefits America from a Medicare standpoint. I think there's a lot of opportunity in nearshoring, not just physical goods and doing light manufacturing. We can do a lot more on the digital side as well.
Well, which countries in the region are best positioned to become major beneficiaries of nearshoring over the next 5 years? What do you think?
Well, I believe Brazil is coming to Panama to try to see if they are able to move their manufacturing to Panama, some of the manufacturing. We have a lot of visits from people from Brazil, from Bolivia. Why? Because they want to sell to the U.S. and they want to find a way to start doing at least some manufacturing here. Also, we have many countries from the U.S. that there are, since Payless Shoes, for example, a shoes company. I recall them being here in Panama since 1999. They established a hub here where they bring 40 containers a week, import to the free zone. They unload the shoes in the free zone, and then they put the ticket price to each of the shoes depending on which country of the region they will go. They will go to Jamaica, and that 40 containers go back to different countries in the region. Now that is doing on a major scale. You have many companies from the U.S. You have Thermo King, for example, Ingersoll Rand coming here, being here, doing the same thing. They have all their merchandise, all their parts, repair parts. And they're also the Chinese with the cars. There's a lot of companies from China that are entering into this market with cars. So what they're doing is they're bringing their parts to have it here, so then they're going to be able to deliver the part of their cars to different countries of the region. So I believe there's going to be a lot of Chinese parts company, car companies here in the region. And also, people that are in the technology business are also getting into Panama. I will say people from Miami are moving their hub from Miami to, instead of going from Miami to the Caribbean, now they're coming to Panama because there's merchandise going from China to the US and then from the US to the Caribbean. So with all the problems that are going through the US when you have Chinese goods, so they prefer, you know what, let's move everything to Central America, to Panama, and then from here we're able to move to the Caribbean with the airlines or with the carriers. So I would say it's a mix, and everything will depend. I would say this is the first time in my life, and I believe in the life of everyone, that we have been receiving so many changes on a daily basis, depending on the decisions that the US and China and all these big countries are doing. So we have to adapt every day. And I believe that if I say something today, maybe tomorrow, even though with the AI, everything is changing very quick. So we have to be able to adapt to different changes and to be prepared to be flexible in the changing.
I live in Washington, D.C., and everybody is talking about two countries right now. Venezuela, for obvious reasons. I went there, and I think the new government, after the arrest of Maduro, they are having great deals with President Trump. and a lot of companies that are going to invest, escaping from communism. And the other country is Guyana. What do you recommend first? Where do you invest? Like Venezuela, Guyana, because in Venezuela a lot of companies they are afraid. Oil companies they are there, of course, but other medium companies they're waiting. What do you recommend for Venezuela, and what do you think about the fever about Guyana?
Well, obviously, we invested in Guyana. I've been there, I was there last February. What I would say is that it depends on your risk appetite. Right? Venezuela is further behind Guyana in terms of that stable government, right? Democracy. I want to see, personally, I would want to see at least 2 sets of elections where the country has the full term run by a president, free and fair elections with no interference from any outside powers. So I would not invest personally in Venezuela. I know there's money to be made in Venezuela, but somebody else who is more comfortable that they can go in. I'm the Warren Buffett guy, so I'm going to look for the very simple 1-foot bar to step over, not 7-foot bars to jump over. So Guyana is where I am. We are focused on Bahamas, Barbados, Guyana, and Jamaica as our 4 Caribbean tigers. You think of them as the 4 Asian tigers in the 80s. Guyana already has a ton of arable land, so it's a breadbasket of the Caribbean. They already had gold, now they have oil. They're trying to avoid the Dutch disease. They don't want that resource curse that we've seen affect the Nigerias, the Angolas, the Trinidad and Tobago's. They want to be like Norway. So that's great. You have a president who understands the risk of this resource curse. They're putting together a sovereign wealth fund. They're investing in diversifying their economy. But that means that they're spending a ton of money, and all those people need houses. All of them need to eat. They're going to be earning more money. They need to invest their money. Not all of it is going to be invested just there. So for me, Guyana is Jamaica in the 1970s. It's based on what I saw. There's so much more opportunity. But stable, democratic, happens to be here in South America, but it's actually part of CARICOM. So it's a Caribbean country culturally. And I think that there's serious opportunity there, and we should not sleep on Guyana. Don't go there just to invest in oil. There's all the other opportunities on the side of oil.
I want to tell you about Panama. What's the single most attractive investment in this country? You can walk around and you see that Panama is a really good country, and they have good energy companies, mining companies. They have everything, like what the country needs.
Well, I see a lot of today. I will tell you what I see every day. I see a lot of real estate investment in buildings, shopping centers, new projects in electricity as well. There is a lot of interest in data centers, but not for regular data center, but AI data centers in Panama, because electricity is too expensive and doesn't worth it for a regular data center, but for an AI data center, it makes more sense. My country, our country, is a service country. So I will say that anyone that would like to invest in Panama has to look for a value of what is going to be the better way to be connected to the world, and this is the place. If you need to have a product, not only in Panama, because Panama is a 4 million country, people, but if you are looking at Panama as a hub where you're able to invest in a warehouse, in an operation, move your company to Panama to start from here, providing goods to all the region, to Guyana, to Venezuela, to all these countries, you're going to have a good connection from here. I would like to add about Venezuela. Panama, for example, the free zone, one of the major customers of the free zone for many years, since 1948, is Venezuela. And we have been selling to Venezuela under credit. It's like you say, you have to have the appetite. And we have received up and downs. We have received, on good times, we have received the money. Sometimes we have not been able to get paid, and some company have been having problems to collect the money. But at the end, I will say that from Panama, it's a small country, you're able to have reference of, I was talking to David before, and I told him that in the free zone, there is a culture that we have to give credit. We're able to give to our customers more than 90 days credit, 120 days credit, to any customer that comes to buy to the free zone. Why? Because everyone knows everyone. And if you want to know, hey, how this guy is doing in Jamaica or whatever, because I sell to him, oh no, he's very good in this and this and that, let's give him credit. So there is a good opportunity to invest in Panama, knowing that it's a country that you are able to do good business success, and it's a stable country.
How do you see Panama?
I am impressed. This is only my second time in Panama and the first time outside the airport. I was an in-transit passenger. And when I was driving yesterday, I took video and I sent it to some of my friends in Jamaica who have never been here. And they said, oh, wow, that looks like Miami. And I said, yes, this is what Jamaica could look like. We are behind Panama. We can learn from it. It's a great case study about what happens when you focus on managing crime, dealing with corruption, being pro-business while supporting workers, right? You want them to get paid well. We need them to have good transportation, infrastructure, and ensuring that the country isn't just focused on agriculture, for example. You guys have a more diversified economy. You knew that you were a great location for shipping and logistics and nearshoring, and you leaned into it. In my economics class, that was called a comparative advantage. In countries like Jamaica and elsewhere, we kept picking one thing. Hey, it's going to be bananas, and then sugarcane, and then bauxite. No, you need to diversify economy. We are too heavily focused in the Caribbean on tourism, and in one type of tourism from one market, basically. Let's get tourists from North America to come and hang out on our sun, sea, and sand. We need to do better, and there are opportunities that, again, we come to Panama, we can learn. So I want to invest here. I was talking to him about the fact that we have our free zones. They're now called special economic zones. What are the rules here versus there? And I said, wait, so you mean I can come and build a property here and we can lease it? And he then tells me about 300 hectares. So we need to talk. We need to talk.
What do you think about the human resources in Panama? Because sometimes the companies, they come to a country and they need qualifying human resources.
Yes, people want to work. We need to more. We're working on the human resource every time more and more. I would say now, with all the new technologies that we have, Claude and ChatGPT and all that stuff, give a lot of support because, for example, English sometimes was a problem, but now I'm talking to you in Spanish and you're speaking in English and you are able to translate immediately. So there are different tools now that we need to teach to our staff, to our people, to take that tools as an advantage for them to be able to, because as a country that is not well developed as the United States or any other country, our schools, the public school, I will say it's not a very good education, but as a level that some companies will require. But at the end, when the people start working for the company, if the company invests in them and they train them and they give them the support that they need to grow, they will do the most of their what they ever to do, because we're a service country, to give a very good service. So it will depend what you want to do. If you're going to do something very technician, very specific, maybe you will have to consider how to do it. But if you're going to do something that is, we have the Panama Canal, for example. Most of the population that works on the Panama Canal are Panamanians. You have the major ports in Panama. Most of the major ports are managed by Panamanians. So we have a lot of people that are well educated if you give them the local access and education. So I would say it's a good country to put up a company, and you're going to receive good people to work with you.
What about the human resources in the Caribbean?
Yeah, that is a problem, and the Prime Minister of Jamaica has spoken about this, Bahamas, Barbados, and so we have to remember, brain drain, 70+% tertiary educated leave within 5 years. So we keep losing some of the most educated people, and we have to keep replacing them. We don't have as much institutional knowledge. So upskilling of workers matters. What I also would say, though, is that if you pay people well and provide good training, you'll get good work out of them. And a part of that equation has been missing. We need to do good training, right? So we've trained people in some things, but then it's not necessarily good. So if I train you to be a welder, but then there's no certification process, I don't verify that it was good, then are you really properly trained, right? You might have something that says I'm a welder, but you're not really a good welder. So we need to upskill people properly. AI is going to help us actually do that, I would think, much faster, and to test people. And then the second one is paying them. We can't pay US rates, but I do think in the Caribbean we need to pay a little bit better. Otherwise, they are going to leave because they see what is on cable and opportunities and speak to their cousins. So human capital is the single most important thing. And Lee Kuan Yew from Singapore proved it. They had no hinterland, no fresh water, and he decided when they got independence, well, when they got kicked out of the federation, their people are their number one resource, and they need to invest in them.
And in 20 seconds, your final message to the audience?
Well, I would say, yeah, I see that I have to. I would say invest in Panama, believe in Panama. We are living proof. We already are doing business for many, many years, and we have a lot of projects like the Panama Canal that have been managed by Panamanians and different other projects in Panama that you have seen that are doing very good. So if you come here, you put your business here, you're going to do a lot of business here.
And your last 20 seconds?
I would say don't overlook people of Caribbean or Central American heritage who are in the diaspora. They want to invest back home, not just send remittances, and nobody's building a bridge to make it easy for them to pool their capital, invest transparently, and support home. It's not just about foreign direct investment. We need diaspora direct investment as well.
Please join me in thanking our guests, David Mullings and Dovi Eisenman, for sharing their insights today. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being with us. We look forward to continuing this important conversation in the USA House. Thank you very much.
Thank you.